let's see, Florian.
Kitchen, yeah, okay. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the MAC, my name is Lily Holland. I'm the General Director of the Museum of Applied Arts in Vienna, where you will have the chance to follow the BRIC Conference 24 by Wienerberger today. What unites the MAC and Wienerberger is a long history. It's more than 160-year-old history, because we are all, both of us are made of bricks. It's part of our DNA, as you can see. We are very happy to cooperate also with Wienerberger on the exhibition that you can see next door, Protest Architecture. And to me personally, as someone being in the field of architecture, of design, and with a museum like the MAC that really engages in sustainability by all means, we are very happy to have a partner that engages as the industry in the building sector and with architecture. So we've heard a bit about the awards that significant for the year 24. I wish you a wonderful day with new insights, and thank you to Wienerberger and to all of you for coming, and enjoy your day at the MAC. Bye.
Thank you so much, Lilian. On behalf of Wienerberger and the BRIC Award 24, I would like to welcome you to the BRIC Award Architecture Symposium. Both all of you attending here at the beautiful MAC Museum in Vienna, and those of you who are watching our live stream. My name is Veronica Heidelind, and I have the honor to be moderating this event. Normally, I'm based in Stockholm, where I run a small office called Hallemar Heidelind, working with issues and projects on urbanism, architecture, and public art. First, I would like to start with some practical information. Our program consists of 2 blocks. We will start with listening to our 4 keynote speakers that will do a 20-minute presentation each, followed by a short Q&A, respectively. We will have a break for coffee after the first 2. So at 11:40, also you watching the live stream, at 11:40, you can also get up from your screens, stretch your legs, have a coffee, and we will be back here again at 12 o'clock sharp. After the second 2 presenters, after the break at around 1 o'clock, we will have all the keynotes up here on stage with me for a panel discussion, in which I hope you will all join in. And for that and the Q&As, there will be a microphone going around, handed by a young man named Leonard, the guy with his arm in his sling. Be careful with him. He just had his shoulder operated on just a couple of days ago. He's at the back right now. But I will urge you to use the microphone, because otherwise our online audience won't be able to hear your questions, and I will have to repeat it back to them. I know it's scary sometimes to have a microphone in front of you, but please get over it. We will end the symposium at 2 o'clock, where we here at the MAC will be served a light lunch. There is a free Wi-Fi here. You'll find it in your browsers under Mac Visitors. If you're using social media, the BRIC Award will be very happy if you tag them at BRIC Award. They will also repost your posts. This will also be a very good opportunity for everyone to put their mobile phones on mute. So, let's get started. We live in a time where it has become increasingly difficult, not to say impossible, to ignore the effects of climate change. We all experience it, we see it, we feel it, no matter where on the planet we live or go to visit. I went through the southern parts of Germany a couple of days ago. It had to be rerouted because of the extreme flooding going on there, just to give you one example. The 1.5 degrees Celsius target threshold for global warming set at the Paris Agreement in 2015 is now, according to research, unlikely, but still not totally impossible to reach. But that window, though, is closing fast. We see now how mitigation is slowly being overshadowed by adaptation. The outlook is somewhat bleak, to say the least. But, as you know, there is always hope. This is not news to anyone in here. We've all heard this many times by now. We know. And yet, the response from our industry to the climate crisis has been slow. Yes, change is happening, but not nearly as fast and not radical enough. According to the latest report from UN Environment Programme, the building and construction sector accounted for 37% of global energy and process-related CO2 emissions, and its energy consumption reached more than a third of global demand in 2022. The scale of this is almost unfathomable. Just a 1% increase in the sector's emission is equal to 10 million more fossil fuel cars circling the equator. At the same time, it's estimated that half of the buildings that will exist by 2050 has not yet been built. In short, there is no credible path to address climate change without a fundamental shift in the building and construction sector. And this is a huge challenge. And architecture, of course, has an important role to play here. And I know we've had countless of seminars, symposiums, and conferences on sustainability and architecture that stresses the need to scale up and innovate already. It is easy to succumb to feelings of hopelessness. So much talk, so much knowledge sharing, too little action. But I think that events like these are necessary. We need to meet, listen, discuss, learn, inspire, and support each other in order to take on the challenges that we are facing as an industry. I am therefore grateful that Wienerberger and the Brick Award gives us the opportunity to do just that here today. Because it's clear and obvious to all that there is and will not be one solution, one model, one innovation that solves this complex issue. We need to work on all scales. We need to seek new ways, and we need to work together. The theme for this symposium, Sustainable Horizons, Advancing Architecture Through Scalable Innovations, aims to capture just this. And we are very happy to have 4 keynote speakers here today that will share their insights, profound knowledge, and experiences working as architects on 4 different continents, giving us global perspectives on these challenges. And I would like now to invite our first speaker, Jennifer Benningfield, up to the podium. Jennifer, please join me. I'll give you some water. Jennifer, you're the founding partner of Open studio architects based in London. Open studio projects include the refurbishment and extensions of a number of listed buildings in London and new built private houses in both London and South Africa, where you actually grew up and now work and live part-time in a magnificent house that you built for you and your family in Karoo. Open Studio has won 2 open REBA housing competitions, most recently for the Zero Carbon Homes of 2030. You also received the Plan 2023 Housing Award and were shortlisted for the Brick Award this year. Big applause. You have also been a visiting critic, lecturer, and external examiner at the universities in South Africa, the US, and the UK. The title of your presentation is Joy and Bravery, Creating Sustainable Homes. Please.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Veronica, and for inviting me to be a speaker. So I'm going to talk about joy and bravery, creating sustainable homes. Is this the clicker? Thank you. What do? We connect people to their environments. Why do we do this? We think that there is a connection between the joy and fulfillment that people feel in spaces and their sense of responsibility towards that space and to the environment as a whole. What is at stake? If we are to imagine sustainable horizons for architecture delivered at scale, then we as architects need to use our skills to enable people to become invested in places and to take forward an awareness of how to live sustainable lives in those environments and the benefits of doing so. Architects leave, people stay, and they live their complex lives in the buildings and the spaces we create. It's critical that we ask how we can create spaces that are special, that are unique, that have a sense of identity, that enable people to feel that they really belong in those spaces. Too often in the UK, the debate around housing is about the delivery of numbers and solving technical solutions. It's only really recently even that the carbon agenda has been put on the map at all. Most of the time, it's really a question of delivering the maximum number of affordable homes at scale. So on the left-hand side, we can see an image of the makeup of our Homes of 2030 project, which is a zero-carbon project. But the image on the right is more an idea of what we do when we create those places. How do we create places that are really homes, that have layers, that are not just about how things are made, but also what we are making? You have to be really brave in housing in the UK to focus on joy, because it's ephemeral, it's intangible, and sometimes it seems like a really expensive luxury when people don't have homes at all. But if we ignore it, if we focus on the delivery of housing just as a delivery of numbers, then we really run the risk of creating deeply unsustainable environments that do not offer social and economic sustainability into the future, even if we tick all the environmental boxes. So I'm going to talk about 5 ways in which we in our practice deal with this idea of how we connect people to the environments. We need to nurture our planet. How do we do that as architects? So the first is this concept of history and landscape, including the concept of time and longevity. The second is weather and light, an awareness of climate. How do we build that into our buildings? The third is night and day, the importance of light and darkness. We think darkness as a concept in buildings is really critical and one that's not spoken about enough. 4, active engagement. How do we encourage people to modify and adjust their spaces in order to accommodate change over time, but also to increase the sense of belonging? 5th, growth and change. How do we build the idea of flexibility and change over time into the way we design? So history and landscape. Before we even start a project, we do a lot of research into the particularities of the place to the history of it, and to the physical space, and also the way that space has been imagined over time. This is our Westminster Fire Station project. It's a Grade 2 listed Edwardian fire station in London, in central London, in Victoria. And the project was to retrofit and refurbish the fire station, but also to add a new contemporary building to the rear, which you can see just peeking out behind the facade of the fire station. We did a lot of research into the fabric of the area. There are a lot of striped Edwardian buildings in that particular location. There's also a series of glazed bricks on the interior of the fire station, both in the engine bays and in the stairwell. And we took those glazed bricks and we traced the geometry of the old fire station onto the facade of the new. So on the right-hand side is the glazed bricks on the interior, and you can see on the left-hand side how we used the new glazed bricks with a different glaze to create a unique facade for the new building, tying the two together, creating a kind of ghosting of the old onto the new without repeating its language. This is a new build house that we did in Kensington in London. There were a lot of trees on the site, and so we had the idea of an urban forest that could be woven into the fabric of the building. So planting is integrated not only into the external fabric of the building, but also into the interior. This is actually built with a Wienerberger brick, which we absolutely love and we're really happy with. It has a bark-like texture, which connects to the concept of the urban forest. Continuing that idea of how we develop architectural languages that are unique and special to sites, this is the first prototype for the Homes of 2030 Connector Housing project that we won in the RIBA competition. It's based up in the north of England, in Sunderland, and we looked at the adjacent park. There's a very beautiful landscape area immediately adjacent to the site, and we developed low-carbon materials to clad the building. So it's essentially a modular off-site construction, but it's made particular through connecting it to place. We also think it's really important to learn from history. There are very beautiful gardens in London, if any of you are familiar with them. They're 19th century structures where housing was built around communal gardens, and these spaces are really protected for the community, but they also form a resource for the city. So with LDA Landscape Architects and the Home of 2030, we took this idea of the communal gardens and expanded it into a 21st century model. Weather and light. We think it's really important to have an idea of weather and light in the buildings, to connect people to the changing environments, to connect them to the external world, and also to develop a greater awareness of climate and change into the structure of buildings. So, as Veronica said, I'm a foreigner in London. I'm South African. I come from a very different place. And the thing that I loved about London when I moved there was the changing skies. It's something no one ever really talks about. So in the Westminster Fire Station project, because we were creating quite a tight urban courtyard, we used these glazed bricks to reflect the light and the weather of the external environment into the courtyard. And interestingly, the building looks even better on a foggy day. The Swartberg House in the Karoo in South Africa is a very, very different project because here the sun is intense, particularly in the summer. It's a passive solar house, and so the language of the sun and the movement and the way it's harnessed in order to operate the house becomes part of the poetic language of the building. And the way the light moves through the building is something that really enhances the awareness of the place, but also becomes part of its language. But light is not just about poetics. It's also about sustainability and power. This is a prototype housing project that we did for a really large UK house builder. We ran daylight sunlight tests for them. So on the top left-hand side, you can see their standard unit. I've used only one of their standard units, but we ran it across the entire range. What you can see is that the daylight sunlight on the interiors of those buildings fail the required daylight by a 50% margin. Our prototypes, which are the ones on the right-hand side, exceed the required daylight levels considerably. We did this in several ways. We made the floor-to-ceiling heights higher. The standard floor-to-ceiling heights in house builder types are extremely low. We made taller windows, we increased glazing area. We did this without having an impact on overheating, proving that you can do both. It's really important because it enhances health and well-being, as well as minimizing energy use. And because you can have a view of the sky from the interior of the building, it connects people to their outside world. And actually, what is kind of depressing is that they're still building tens of thousands of the ones on the left-hand side every year. Day and night. We live in overlit environments, particularly in London. We never have dark skies. You can barely see stars. And there is a thing about overlit buildings that disrupts our circadian rhythm. So we think it's really critical that buildings not only enhance an experience of day, but also of night. For the Swartberg House, we made a 10-minute video with a young filmmaker in South Africa, Tatiana Morales. This is just a very short clip of it. But it shows the experience of the house through 24 hours. So it cycles from night, from moonlight moving across the floor, to day, to night again. And what's critical about this is that you see that the experience of darkness is a really important part of the experience of the building. In the Kensington House in London and in the Swartberg House, we've connected the source of artificial light to the source of daylight. So even as the quality of the light changes, the light comes from the same place. We've used a lot of skylights. Given that this is London, it brings light deep into the interior. And here you can see the bricks used on the exterior of the building and also of the interior, which weaves the two spaces together. But this experience of light and darkness is not only about one-off single-family homes. For the Home of 2030 project, we worked with sustainability engineers Ho Lee to develop a plug-and-play system so that light is delivered only where you need it and not uniformly. The idea is that you can carry light around and put it where you need it to be, so you do have an experience of darkness as part of your everyday life. There is also this idea that you can carry the light, like a lantern, out into the communal garden, and it's a signifier of a presence in that garden, connecting communities and enforcing them. Active engagement. We think it's critical that people actively engage with their buildings, that they have a stake in them, that they take ownership of them, and also that they connect to the external world. There are lots of different ways to do this, so I'm going to talk very quickly through some of them. In the Swartberg House, because it's a passive solar house, it has no heating and no cooling in it. The building itself acts as a harvester of light and air. In the summer, the building is closed up during the day and opened at night, using the cooler night air as a natural air conditioner that's sealed into the building in the daytime. But in winter, the opposite happens. They're dark brick floors, they act as a thermal store, they collect the heat during the day, they seal it in, and then at nighttime, the building is closed so that heat is not lost. This project actually asks really important questions, not only about the responsibility of architects to ensure that we minimize the use of energy in the operation of our buildings, but also in a much less regulated place than the UK. What are our requirements as human beings in terms of the consistency of temperature in our buildings? Do we really have to keep our bodies at a constant temperature? Can we not think about really feeling the changes in our external environment and taking more responsibility for the consequences of our actions on the natural world? So back to the Connect to Housing project, again working with LDA, this is the series of communal gardens throughout the development. So what's important here is that they're not repetitive. They have different geometries, they have different scales, different spaces, and also they have different identities. So they wouldn't have consistent planting in all the gardens. There would be this idea of linking belonging and identity around each particular garden. So for example, you could have community events where people come to celebrate apple picking or the cherry blossoms coming out. So there is this idea of community and landscape embedded into the housing development. This is the prototype housing that we're building up in Sunderland. We jointly won the competition with another firm of architects, Mawson Kerr. And so their scheme is on the right-hand side, the colored red and yellow buildings, and ours is on the left. And together we're forming a development around a common courtyard. It unites not only the work of two different architectural practices, but also the community into the future. But the engagement with community is not limited just to the external space. We think it's really critical that the interiors of buildings offer resources to the community as well. It was great to see the 1920s housing models in Vienna yesterday and the way community spaces are integrated into the fabric of the building. We developed this idea of a connector, which is a modifiable unit. It can be customized to different sites because this is a UK-wide mass housing model. So it's essentially an expansion of vertical circulation, but it can be modified to accommodate residents' needs. It can offer cycle storage, scooter storage, delivery areas for digital deliveries. It can offer work from home spaces. Not everybody wants to work on their kitchen tables all the time. And also community and gathering spaces. Also, actually interestingly, training spaces or corner shops. So on the right-hand side is it as a modular unit, as the minimal unit. It can be expanded on corners. It can integrate lifts. The idea is that it can be used as a customizable element to make the housing particular. Growth and change is the fifth and final theme, and probably the most controversial as far as architects are concerned. We're taught in architecture schools to create these perfectly balanced, complete architectural objects. But actually, with the current debate around retrofit and architects taking over other people's buildings and modifying them, we also need to accept that perhaps our buildings are going to be the retrofit projects of the future. How do we design and allow for growth and change? So this again is the Westminster Fire Station project. On the right-hand side, you can see the buildings that existed in the courtyard before ours existed. And you can kind of see the state of the existing heritage building on the right-hand side. It was in extremely poor condition. So we refurbed it, we made it much more thermally efficient. The way that was economically feasible to do so, and I think we do need to talk about economics in architecture, was to add the new building, which is actually even bigger than the heritage building, on the left-hand side to form a courtyard. But there is also an opportunity in these projects to create something that is actually more special, that is more of a resource to the city than it was at the beginning. In the Swartberg house in South Africa, it's a detached house. It's located in a landscape. And what we did here is we used a set of perfectly balanced geometries, but we inflected them in response to the geometry of the surrounding landscape. So what happens in this building is that the landscape is brought inside the building in a kind of structural way. There are a series of very loose splayed spaces between the purity of the geometries. And it does something actually very interesting, which I perhaps hadn't anticipated, which is that it creates a kind of imperfection, a natural movement, an organic structure within that building, which kind of mirrors the imperfection and the looseness of the landscape itself. It also creates an uneven profile against the mountain. Too often we see modernist buildings that are just a line against the landscape. As you move around this building, the profile of the building changes. And it also can anticipate change. You can imagine this building being added to over time because it's not a perfectly balanced object. The Kensington House in London is similar in that even though it's on a very, very tight, much more urban site, it has a kind of looseness in the geometry that also allows for change over time. We have vertical shafts through the building which admit light deep into the ground floor, but they can also have been designed to accommodate a wheelchair lift, should one be needed in the future. Am I late? Oh, am I that late? The Connector Housing Project, again, integrates this idea of growth and change. It's a repetitive footprint. It can go from houses to apartments and back again. It can also change in the interior over time. And the connector housing project is also designed to change in density. I'm going to be very quick now because I think I'm over time. So in summary, this is what we do. We use these 5 themes to create buildings which connect people to their environments. All of these projects are very low carbon or zero carbon projects, but we don't think that's enough. We need to create buildings that are truly have longevity, that foreground joy, and we have to be brave in order to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Stay with me. We're going to open up for questions. Are there any questions for Jennifer? No, then I'll take the opportunity. It's so nice to hear the words joy and bravery connected to housing. The housing situation, I think, globally has been in constant crisis now for so long. It seems so difficult for all societies to be able to provide adequate housing for all. It's been a declaration in the human rights law of the UN since 1948. Why is it so difficult for us to deliver on this and take such care when we build homes? The way you presented it here, what is holding us back?
Well, I think actually a lot of it is about procurement, because what we found when we worked for this UK house builder is that it is entirely possible to do it. It's actually entirely possible to deliver housing at scale that has adequate daylight, that is adequately insulated, that allows for people to adapt their buildings over time. But there's a lot of resistance within that sector of thinking that it's just business as usual and they can continue to deliver housing in the way they've always delivered it. Yeah. I do think that the debate is changing, and I do think there is pressure on people now to adjust it, but a lot of it is about how housing is actually delivered and that people are quite resistant to change, at least in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to get back to this issue on the panel discussion later on, but thank you for now, Jennifer. A big round of applause for Jennifer. It is now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, a fellow Scandinavian, Jens Linnet. You are the founding partner and co-owner of Boogle, based in Denmark. You are a landscape architect. Boogle is an award-winning practice specializing in landscape architecture and planning. The office designs all kinds of outdoor spaces, conservatories, between and on buildings, inside and outside of cities. During the 10-year history of Boogle, you have received a large number of awards and recognitions for your work. You've been represented at exhibitions nationally and internationally, and you lecture frequently. Jens, please join me up on stage.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm just going to see if I can get my...
Yeah, and while you do that, I can tell the audience that the title of your presentation is Challenging Tradition, What We Think of When We Think of Something Beautiful. Please.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here, and I'm also very humble. There were so many fantastic projects that we saw yesterday, and I'm going to dare something here. I'm going to try to talk about beauty as an architect among architects. That's challenging, but I think that there is a kind of redefinition about beauty constantly in our society, and I want to ask you, to close your eyes just for a moment and picture a place that really matters to you. Try to close your eyes. Think of a place that is kind of dear to you, personal and really important. Because I bought this picture. This is one of my places that means something. It's my 2 kids in the front, my sister and her 2 kids in the back. It's where my father lives in Sweden. It's a place I grew up and come to every summer. It's going to go there soon. Places like this that really, really are deep integrated in our history and our sense of belonging. And I think these places are important to remember when we develop new places for people we don't know, for the city, for the surrounding. And I think that it's also important to understand that they also reflect the meaning that is changing throughout time. And I think in our work, we always thought we are doing something, we're creating space that are doing a better life for people, basically, for nature and solving sustainable issues. I'm going to show you some quick examples here to begin. We try to do it differently every time. Every project is kind of a new process. This is an area in Copenhagen that is a generic city, a little bit like we saw yesterday in Seestadt. So what you do in a place where there is no history, no surroundings at all. So we try to find some history in the landscape, the geology or something like that. So this is an example of that. Another space here is in a social area. This was just grass lawns. Here we can handle a lot of rainwater and also create a new biotop of elderly forests. So all these projects are looking very differently each time. And I think this is a pleasure to work with. This is also in Copenhagen, understanding how the geology has shaped this area and the nature around. You can see the brick. I brought some pictures of bricks today as well, of course, where they have the sand issues. You have sand, clay, and lime. That is the geological materiality of a lot of parts of Denmark. And also here trying to bring in the green and reduce the urban space to narrow and make us come a little bit closer to each other. Another project with the brick, this is in Ada. This used to be a parking lot to this town hall. It's actually a very nice town hall from the 70s, trying to bring out the brick to relate the building and also make the building connect to the landscape in a new way. And as you can see on these pictures, we like as architects to work with detailing and materiality. And here's an example how the rainwater from the roofs and the surroundings are handled in the project with materiality. And this was a stream that was put in pipes, and we reopened it, rewilded it, and has worked with the nature around it to make the stream become a really part of this project as a former parking lot. But how is all this changing now? That's what I wanted to talk about today. How is our perception of our surroundings changing when the world looks like this? It's not because I sometimes talk about, despair and hope, and I'm going to try to push over at hope in this lecture. But this is what's happening around us, right? There is floods, there is fires, there is traffic. We are really using the resources to a limit that is not possible. And now it goes very fast, so it's something that has to happen right now and here, and we have to act. So I think we are trying, more and more for every project to try to say, okay, how can this project contribute not only not to harm, but also contribute to a positive change? And of course, the projects I'm showing today are a bit old because they have been built, so I'm also going to show some projects of what we are working on right now. The first project here is in the west of Denmark, up on the west coast, where it's windy and wet. It's where all the fishermen are, and it's a town where there was a competition, and they wanted us to demolish a lot of the old housing that you can see in the picture here to create a big square and make a loop in the city so all the commercial areas were linked together. These are some pictures of the site, and you can understand the politicians. This looks like rubbish, right? Take it down, build something new, that's better. But we also, when we try to research the site, there's very few of these backyard environments left because we tend to kind of clean up all the time, and at least that's what's happened in Scandinavia. And there is a lot of resources here, but there's also a lot of history. And the reason this is a city where it's really windy and it rains a lot, and these big open spaces are not really used in Denmark. It's very hard. I imagine we have a bit the same climate you have in England or some of these Western countries. So we thought if we can keep it, we can also create a microclimate that actually are more suitable to the site that we're in. So we're landscape architects, but in this project we also dare to kind of work both inside and outside. So you can see the drawing on the left is trying to see, how can we intervene the different situation. The task was to open up so you could circulate the city. So the old Smith that you can see on the right side, we took up the roof, we opened it up and made it to a public square, but with a roof on top, a glass roof. Trying to look at the different parts of the history, the old buildings, the old smithy, the materiality that you can see, the cobblestones that are there. This is an area where you have a lot of limestone. It's actually called the fjord of the limestone. So limestone was a natural material to use. And also, of course, the old brick buildings that was from the site. So here you see the connection to the fjord, and you see the building in the middle with this new glass roof on top. And you can, maybe, I don't know if I can point as well here. You can, no. Now I did something that I shouldn't. I don't know if I can point. Well, anyway, that you can see how it's opened up. Maybe if I do like this, yeah. That you can actually now cross from the pedestrian street and through the area. So here it is. What we wanted with the landscape, because you have a collage in the city, there is a lot of different materiality, right? So we wanted the landscape to be as simple as possible. Few material. We kept the cobblestones, but the cobblestone is not so accessible. So we added, you can see the pedestrian sidewalks on the side with the limestone. And then there is this antiquariat that was there. We wanted him to stay, so we just cut in and put in some new windows and did some work with the simple work with the facades. We worked with these stones, having you can see the lines for accessibility that is cut into the stone. Also here we don't pretend we are architects, but we put in a new window and this small stair so that this guy, he could keep this old building. It's a very little change, but it makes enough so he can keep using it, and it still is working. And here you can see the Smith. We had the ambition that we just should take off the roof and then keep the fundament of the facade cutting holes. But of course, this brick was so old, so we had to take everything down and rebuild it. But we were able to rebuild it with recycled bricks. And it's an open space. You can book it online to have a birthday party or to cook or to have some other event. And they use it for a number of different events. So here you can see the small garden, and it creates all these small pockets around this building. You have the doors where you can close off if it's windy and rainy. And these are a bit poor quality. I picked them on the net just to show, how it's used. And it's funny because it's much more used than these big open spaces. You can see they have an opera concert here now. Who imagined that? They have dancing sessions, they have a play with kids, and it's actually just an empty room. Here is my office. We went there and we booked it to cook. We were on a study trip, and we made seafood, and it's just to test if our project worked as we assumed. And it was a really nice evening. The next project I'm going to talk about is what we call, it's a bit cliche word, it's called the Future Garden. But it's a pilot project. I think the Symposium here also talks about scaling. And this is a project about scaling. You can see the right-hand pictures. In Copenhagen, we had the city was flooded 2 years in a row, 2010 and 2011, what we call a 1,000-year event. Statistically, happens every 1,000 years, but it happened 2 years in a row. And it cost billions of kroners, of course. So after that, the city said, okay, we have to solve this. So there's been, throughout the last 10 years, numerous of projects how to handle rainwater, but also handling rainwater in a way that it gives something back to the city. New green spaces, more biodiversity, better bike lanes, etc. So, but here it's a little bit specific, this project, because it's a private area. So it's a combination of a municipality putting money in a private area. That's not typical. It's private landowners who say they're going to handle water for the public. That's not typical either. And it's the support, the ones, what do you call it, the water suppliers that also helps funding it and using this system to retain water when there is a flood. So the idea, as you can see on the right corner, is if we can scale this up, there's hundreds and hundreds of these courtyards that can handle quite a lot of water, and thereby we can help the city from not being overflooded. So the idea that we take all the water from the roofs and keep it in the courtyard, the middle area, it's a 10-year event, and if the water is if it's water really comes up to a 100-year event, the water coming all the way up to the facade. We had also the opportunity to make a lot of experiment here because we had, it was a research pilot project. So we said, okay, let's try to do a project only from recycled materials. Is that possible? So you can see on the right corner, you can see how it looked before we started. And then the municipality, they had stacked a lot of different materials, you know, from old projects. So we had the opportunity to go and look, and it gives this design process that where it's upside down. You can't draw. You have first to look what materials you have, and then you go back and you kind of put it together. So the windows are for the greenhouse, all the trashed windows, and also the stones for the pavings. And here you can see how the future now looks. We have tried to put this together, and also leading the water into the courtyard where it can be handled. And I think the problem here, we talked about regulations earlier today, and I think we manage okay here, but this is not enough for the Danish regulation. So we had the trash people who comes and pick up the trash. It was not even enough because the regulation are made that it has to be, you know, perfect paving, and there's very few pavings that can live up to that standard, and certainly not recycled materials. So it's just to say that there is a lot of kind of complication in this. Another research task in this was they asked us, you know, if you're handling water, how can you make water to a resource? And the problem is, I guess everywhere, that when you need the water, it's not there. In Denmark, you have periods where it rains nonstop for 3 months, then you're not in lack of water. But then we have periods where it's not a single drop for 3 months, and then you really need the water. So we said, okay, if we can make a permanent lake inside this courtyard, then you would have the water when you need it. And that is quite controversial. Denmark is surrounded by water all over, so you would think that people are used to live by water. But that's a culture change. People are afraid of water, actually. So we had a lot of meetings with the people that should move in here and discuss this with them. But finally, they said, okay, we want this lake. We had some talks. It could not be more deep than 50 centimeters for the kids and things like that. And then, of course, the tricky part about water is that water, per definition, is poison after 24 hours if it's still. And it's dangerous for us, right? So in this case, we needed to find a way to clean the water. And we said, okay, if it should be sustainable, we don't want to use chemicals, we don't want to use UV filters, we want to find a biological way to do it. And if you go to the mountains, to the Alps, you would find sources of water that are naturally clean, right? Natural bacteria and filtering in the water can clean water. So we went to some different engineers. It was very hard to find someone that could do this, but there was someone in Germany that did these swim lakes. And together with them, we have developed this system that actually cleans the water in a complete biological, natural way, where it's chalk filters, where the water circulates and it's cleaning up to almost a drinking quality, actually. And the funny thing about this, that in order to this biological filter to work, you need water all the time, because when it dries out, then the bacteria dies and the whole ecosystem collapses. So that kind of also fulfilled the idea that we need a permanent lake. Another thing is that often you need concrete, because concrete is sealing and can maintain water, but concrete is not so sustainable. So in this project we said, okay, we're going to have some concrete, but we want to try to do a recycled project. So it's actually the first public project in Denmark where we have taken some old buildings, crushed down the stones, and remade the concrete. And you could think this is quite easy, but the problem is that the regulations in Denmark says that you have to know the source of the concrete that you take down to be able to document the strengths of the future concrete, right? So I think it's very good that this is a landscape project and not a high-riser, but so there's not big catastrophe if there's a crack in a beton, but actually that was a process that was quite difficult, and it was a little bit for us a learning process. How do you actually use recycle when the regulations are so strict around us? But with water also comes a lot of biodiversity, which is great because a lot of animals also require water, permanent water. And it's really a social, we don't need to make any playgrounds because the water is a playground. You can see how the kids play around, they put small docks that sails in this water, and when we have the permanent water, we can also pump it around, so we have a circulation of water, as you can see here in the project. And the people living there are really happy with this project. So, this is a little bit fast going through, but we don't have so much time. So I'm going to try to conclude a little bit here. I think these projects that I showed you now, have really tried to do everything we can to make a change. But I think there is also time now we need to take a step more. And I think this illustrates it a little bit. I think the project that we've done has maybe been, okay, we have all these climate changes, but it's been for us. It's been for us as humans to change and make a better living for us. And I think maybe what we haven't been so aware of is that it's not only us. We have to think of all living nature to really do this and find a better balance where not only the circulation, the circular thinking, and not only sustainable thinking, but actually a regenerative thinking where we create something that actually also gives a positive feedback for all nature. And this is tricky. I think it's small steps all the time. I think I'm going to show some projects now, and this is also coming a little bit back to how we look at what is beauty, and as architects, where we really like detailing and nice materiality, and how do we do this. And these are some experiments, but it's going to turn out to be a big new street where we reduce traffic. But here we're trying to go out directly because steel is often recycled, it's melted down, it's reproduced. But here we're trying to go directly out to the, what do you call it, where they collect the trash, because steel is, you get paid 1 krona or something for every kilo. So there is these magazines, but they're not sorted. So we're going out, picking out the steel that we can use, buying a little bit extra, but it saves a lot of money. And then we use those money to transform the steel directly instead of melting it down, so it saves a lot of energy. And the same, you can see a lot of the sidewalks in Copenhagen. It's huge amounts of these concrete slabs. When they get too old to be used as sidewalks, they are crossed down and used for other things. So here in this project, we say, okay, can we use them more directly, to delay that process of demolishing them? And these are some tests where everything you see here is actually made of recycled materials. The gravel is old bricks. The slabs is from this old concrete that you see on the sidewalks. The steel is picked directly from these steel, where they take the steel before they melt them down. This is in Norway, in Trondheim, quite far up north. And here we won a competition about making a new promenade through an old industrial site. It's a long promenade. It's about 2 kilometers. And it's before the city is developed. And we said, okay, 2 kilometer promenade, that's a lot of material. That's a lot of resources to be used for something that is temporary, right? So here instead you can see this is, I should have taken a picture, but today this is just a big asphalt road. Everything is asphalt here. So we said, what about if we cutting out the promenade in the asphalt and trying to use that as giving the asphalt a new aesthetic dimension, but just recycled it directly on the site. And we're doing that by saying, okay, but then we cut up the asphalt on the sides, as you can see on the section, taking the asphalt up, cultivating a little bit the earth, maybe adding a little bit nutrients, planting in it, putting the asphalt back because it holds on the moisture, so it's easier, selecting some species that are used to grow in the Norwegian nature, in cracks in the mountain. And in this way, we can create a promenade basically without adding anything else than just plant material. Of course, we have some protections also, as you can see along the way, for people not stepping out in the different areas, creating some seating areas. But I try to do something with what is on the site. This is another project that is quite interesting. It's an old slaughterhouse. The politicians wanted to take it down for ages, and there was this political, discussion about this for years. And while they discussed, a lot of artists and a different group of citizens were moving in here without the municipality knowing it. And the funny thing is that this city are branding themselves as being the cultural kind of capital of Denmark, like a small city. And what they didn't know was that they had the most innovative and most cutting edge art work going on in there, and they wanted to take it down. So in the process, we're convinced that we're going to keep the building, and we have tried now to do the landscape around, as you can see here, keeping all the surfaces, adding, so you can come into the building, also building the product from recycled materials, planting and creates different spaces around the building. It's quite interesting. I'm almost done. This is the last project I wanted to say, because I think this is a project where, for us, it points into the future. It's a large area. You can see it's an old shipyard in Copenhagen that now is going to be developed. And they had a competition for this, where they had 5 categories, an open competition. How should we develop this? And one of the categories that we selected to go for was how to develop this with focus on biodiversity. So, and we won the competition, so that's great. And now comes a structural competition after this. But in this project, we said, okay, if we really want to take biodiversity in the cities seriously, then first, this image up here, we need to map all the existing nature and biocorridors that are, to connect them and make sure that there is a system of green within the city. Then we have to go and map the existing species that actually are here. And we found out, together with some biologists, that there was 4 endangered species on this industrial site. A frog, 2 butterflies, and the eel. And so we said, okay, if you're going to develop this, there is a lot of cultural history in buildings. Keep them, don't demolish anything. That's the first one. Then detect all the natural habitats, protect them. And then thirdly, find out where you can place the new buildings. This sounds banal, but it's quite radical. And then people say, why would we do all these efforts because of 4 species? And here you can see what happens. If we develop a special environment for each of these species, that generates new habitats for a whole number of species. And you can see how over time this develops, and it becomes 4 very interesting ecosystems for each of these species, just by starting to design for them and not for people. And in the end, you can have a varied landscape through this industrial site that I also believe is bringing something positive back to us as human beings. I think that was my final slide. Thank you so much.
Stay with me. Thank you so much, Jens. That was incredibly inspirational and hopeful as you started out trying to achieve. Truly, truly hopeful to see what is actually possible when you sit down and think differently. I think this whole way of working is kind of challenging the norm within the building and construction sector, right? Because their business models is kind of designed on demolition and building anew. And the politicians have kind of learned that that is the way to develop our cities and our neighborhoods. You get rid of the old, you're bringing the new, and you as a politician has done something, you've created something. But you show that there is actually a number of other possibilities and innovative ways to work with developing our societies with respect to community, history, nature, and placing us as humans not at the top, but in an ecosystem where we are also interdependable on other species. And I think that is something that I'm going to take away from your presentation today, because I think that feels really, really hopeful. I'm going to open up for questions from the audience. Do you have any questions for Jens? Leo, we have a question. Would you please help me with the microphone? Be gentle with Leo. And would you please say your name and then pose your question?
Thank you. My name is Peter van Assen from Holland, the Netherlands. Thank you so much for your presentation. I really loved it. And I really liked the story where you start, I am not an architect. And then you are being hired to make this landscaping for this area. And then it turns out that you become the local architect of all the buildings in the whole village, it seems. So I'm wondering, how did you manage to go from saying, I'm not an architect, to become the local hero of all the buildings of all the village? So yeah, thank you.
You need to use the microphone.
I'm not sure I understood the question, but I think curiosity maybe is a good answer to that. I think in our work we don't, as I said in the beginning, when we really try to understand each side, differently. We don't have any method when we work. We try really to start from scratch each time. And the exciting part of that is that we don't really know where it brings us on the projects. So every project is different, the users are different, the spaces are different, and that's also why sometimes we come into passes where we didn't expect or maybe shouldn't have been, fields that we don't know so much about, and that's, I think, why the projects ends up as they're doing. So it's basically a curiosity and interaction with different people and other experts and municipalities. Does that answer your question?
I'm wondering, like you go to this antique shop dealer or the antique shop and say, what you need is a new window. You really need a new window. How?
It's because we went in there and he had this shop, and he was just afraid because the municipality had said, we're going to demolish this and you're going to have to move. And we went into his, and there was no windows. It was completely dark. You couldn't even see the books he was selling. So we said, okay, maybe if we give you some more light, you can stay, and we're gonna have to take a little bit part out to make the connection. But what if we do some work on the horse stable? Then you can store your books there, and small interactions. And he's really happy today, and he's still there. And I think he sells more books as well. So yeah.
I love that project. It also shows that you have faith in the resourcefulness of the community, right? I think this is also kind of going in a totally different direction than we're used to. You create a space and it's not really programmed yet. It's just, you have faith in the possibilities of an open space that the community would know how to use it. So you just give the opportunity, and they are actually really able to figure out themselves if they want to use it for an opera or a birthday party. Yeah, and I think that's really, it's putting trust in the capability of the community. But I'm wondering, this also must challenge the politicians, right, and the municipality. With the slaughterhouse, for example, that were used as studios.
Yes.
How do you actually convince them that it will be better to keep the building rather than, because you're saying you made the wrong decision, here am I propose something totally different, that could be a bit...
But I think in terms of slaughterhouse, it's the artists who moved in there and made something really, they are the one who made the big job, I think, in that. But I think it's very much the politicians, and the politicians are easy in one way, because if you get the opinion for something, then they also change the mind, right? Yeah. So you have to, in some way, try to make them think that this is what people want also.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's kind of like their idea and the people that they're representing. But
I guess that's also part of a democratic process.
But you must be very convincing then, because I guess before that they've heard other people saying the exact opposite would be a good reason to...
Yeah, but I think they, as you said before, a lot of the politicians, they're not architects. They don't, you can't expect them to look into the future of city development. That's our job. So when they're looking at this old slaughterhouse, they see the possibility to selling housing projects, right? Yes. That's what they do. Yes. They don't see the possibility to create a new meeting hub for the whole region, which this has become. Mm-hmm. I guess that's also our job, to convince people.
But that's kind of an unusual role for architects. Is that a new role for architects in a way? To be the voice of a community and show that there are other ways to think and work than the...
Yeah, but it's also to have brave clients, of course.
Yeah.
The municipality has a big role in this, of course. They have supported that, and now it's not easy. They have a lot of building architects. How do you heat an old building like that with so many square meters? How do you maintain it? There's a lot of cost involved with that. Can they get some private people in to take part of that? So they have, now they're developing small boxes where they say, okay, this is a climatized zone within the building. This is cold, and to try to map it. But I think what is interesting with that's not us who works with that, but that opens up also a lot of new questions and maybe also new answers, hopefully, in that process. Yeah.
Did you have a question as well? Leo, would you please help me? We have time for one last question, I think, before the coffee break. And would you please say your name?
This is Margarita from Wienerberger. I'm based in London, and I'm curious about how accessible are those collections of materials that you have reused? Are these known by the architectural practices in Scandinavia in general or in Denmark in particular?
Yeah, it's very different. In some of the materials that you saw in this courtyard, that was a material that the municipality has stacked up. But in that product, I didn't show that, but in that product, the windows and also the wood was taken from the wood industry, because when they're cutting wood, they have standard sizes. So there is some small pieces that are thrown away because they don't fit in. And then we have taken those small pieces, and I should have shown the picture, but I have the limited time. So the sheds are put down with these small pieces of wood that is, so I think it's a mix, and you can see because the things that the municipality keep is the quality materials. So, but now it's more and more focus on it, so we know that they're going to be emptied, of course. So we have to, that's why we're starting to look at, simple materials. How can we do something with concrete slabs? That's more tricky, right? Because it doesn't have the kind of same quality and aesthetics to it. So I think we're trying to search in different ways, actually, I think. Both with the municipality, but also outside that.
Mm-hmm. So these were things that you extracted from the site, from the original site. It wasn't like a bank of materials that you access to it.
I think some of the projects are, and some are not. Yeah, it's very different. And we have a big project. I can't tell you the client because it's confidential, but where we have managed to, together with them, say that we're going to do a whole new city with only recycled brick. So they have been. Then we have been out, and now the first phase is 20,000 square meter recycled brick, coming from Holland. So it's possible, but it's a new logistic where you can't just look in a catalog. You have to go out and try to find the materials in a different way. And I think that project has probably maybe that's Wienerberger. It's
Wienerberger.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think.
Probably.
But the one who sells the bricks to us, they have now started to say, okay, it's almost a lease. We're selling them to you, and when you're done, we're buying them back. So that's kind of a system that comes because the demand is there now. Yeah. So I think these small projects are also starting a new evolvement in a rethinking. Yeah.
I think that all these issues coming up now, we're going to get back to them in the panel discussion. Thank you so much, Jens. And I think both Jennifer and Jens will be happy to talk to you when we now are having a break for coffee. Coffee will be served just outside these doors. And if you need a toilet, there is a toilet to the left. But there are also buffets for coffee downstairs where you also will find additional toilets. So don't waste your time queuing up here because you only have 20 minutes. Out of respect for our digital audience, I want everyone back here at 12 o'clock at the latest. Okay? Thank you for now.
Jättebra.
Tycker du det? Snällt, tack. Gick det bra på presskonferensen? Perfect, thank you. Would you like a glass of water? Would you like a glass of water? Yes. Here you go. Okay. Just not too fast, not Spanish fast. Not Spanish fast, just normal fast. Okay. Carrillo, Carrillo. It's very powerful. Okay, everyone. Let's get started. I hope you are now all refreshed, refueled, and I also hope that our digital audience have had the opportunity to leave their screens for 20 minutes, get something to eat, stretch their legs, get some fresh air, open the window, I don't know. But anyway, we're about to start the second half of the keynote presentations in here. I love the buzz and the energy goes on here outside. I'm sure that level of energy will be kept up by our next speaker, surely also rising a little bit, because Gabriela Carrillo has been described by people who know her really well, that few people can keep up with her pace, and that caffeine is a word used to describe her, best associated with her. Professionally, though, people have named you other things. Architect of the Year, for example, by Architectural Review in 2017, and by Architectural Digest in Mexico, both 2020 and 2023. You have taught at Harvard and Kent State University, among other places. Your work has also been exhibited and honored nationally and internationally and featured in renowned publications like Domus and Architectural Review. You run your own studio, Studio Taller, yes. Out of Mexico City. The studio is a collaborative and interdisciplinary space, for architecture. You are also the co-founder of Colectivo C733, dedicated to developing public spaces in Mexico. And the title of your presentation is Public and Collective.
Fantastic.
Wally.
Thank you. Thank you, Vero. Well, I'm so excited to be here, and thank you, Wienerberger, for this invitation, and Brick Award. This is an honor to be here. Well, I'll start my presentation, which is Público y Colectivo, as Veronica mentioned before. And I would like to start talking about collectivity. I think that's something that is really meaningful for all our practice, you know. So I will talk about the projects that the Colectivo had done for the last 5 years. The Colectivo itself, I believe, it's a project. It starts designing a team to arise a strategy in specifically a request from the federal government to develop public projects in very vulnerable conditions around the country. With that, we had worked around in 35 projects for 3 years, so it's almost 36 projects, we say, in 36 months, and in a very diverse and complex territory all around the country. I need to say that this program has developed 1,000 projects around Mexico in vulnerable conditions, in different types of projects like cultural, sportive, and different areas all around the country itself. What we had done is we had designed a strategy, because imagine the time to develop these projects on that time. And the request at the beginning was that we should design a project that was meant to be built in 3 months. We designed it in 3 months, so that's why we created this idea of the colectivo. And the colectivo, I believe, is something that we do, but we always forget somehow. So we decided to call it C733, and it has to do with we asking ourselves, how should public work should be? You know, in Mexico, this work hasn't been done for years, almost 70 years that public buildings hasn't happened in this scale. So we read some quotes of Eladio Dieste that said that the public buildings should be logic, efficient, and economic, but always with a cosmic position. And we thought that was amazing, so we designed a section, and the idea was to think how we could design in different 2 scales, the big one and the small one, how with geometry we could build something that is efficient and intelligent on one side, and how we can move topography and understand landscape. We then also ask ourselves about history and memory of a site. So the first project we were asked for this competition was to develop a market. So we want to find out in the memory of the city, of the town, and in the memory of markets, what does that mean? We were also asked at this point to design a space that could be flexible enough so they could replicate the market somewhere else. And we wanted to add in our program extra stuff. You know, like in these very vulnerable sites, when there is nothing, we ask ourselves, what do we want to do? What do we want to give to the community? So we were really inspired by informality, and we were inspired as well for designing an oasis in this case. We thought in strategy, not only starting for a team, which is different offices working here with different abilities, but also understanding the strategy of arranging systems and of always adding intelligent and sometimes forgotten issues like let the wind pass, get the correct light, let anything happen in an efficient way. Also understand that systems could be attached and that materials can work in different ways in different sites. So we decided that the materiality of our buildings could change depending on the site where they were. So at the end, we won the competition and we built a market. It wasn't built in 3 months, but we did it in 4 months. So the site was, in this case, very complex. You see, like an abandoned land. And then we designed to these crosses and these floods of people to understand that and create this oasis and to create a new relationship between the site and the context and the building itself. So in this case, the oasis was not finished. Now it's happy and with a lot of plants. We harvest water with it, with a ceiling. We let the light pass. And we designed something that could have the flexibility to replicate it in a logic. So we did that again in another condition. In this case, again, changing these veils of materials, understanding that in this community they have bamboo, and a local community could do that, and also understanding the qualities of the space, which for us are always very significant. For us, doing these projects has been very important because they mean to understand the site as well. In this case, this is a land that usually gets flooded. It's surrounded by rivers, and we have in Mexico make the rivers the back of the house, the place where we throw garbage, pollution. It's not like in Europe that there's a conscience beside the river. In Mexico, that doesn't happen. So we decide that showing what happens to the river and designing these 3 planes of clay that happen everywhere in the walls, in the floors, in the ceiling. We could harvest water. We could let the wind cross. We could achieve some acoustical feature with local materials as coconut wood. We could let and create lattices with this same material, in this case an artisanal brick, and to create this different scale of spaces to happen and always to see to the river. And the building itself is a strategy to harvest water, to clean water, to reuse water, and to show to the people that live there that treating water and cleaning the river and throwing this clean water, extra water to the river is important, and the river is important for our community. In San Blas, things happen in a different way. San Blas is a beautiful town that's filled with history and memory. So for us, the inspiration of these old buildings with this patina was an opportunity to think about our work. And something important is to consider to repurpose and to reuse these buildings. And that's a way to be sustainable. There are a lot of constructions which are abandoned and that have this potential to take advantage of them. But not only the buildings, but also the trees that happen around, the voidness, which in pre-Hispanic architecture is really important. So we consider all of these elements, and with the memory and with the story, we wanted to connect a contemporary intervention, wrapping these patios and cleaning these buildings and taking advantage of the beautiful qualities of these historical spaces to be used. And of course, as pre-Hispanic work, to take advantage of this voidness created by the tension of these contemporary interventions and the historic building itself. This is going to be a space, and this is a space for culture, and this is a space for people moving around freely. We are always playing with the idea of breaking limits. You know, in Mexico, everything has to do with placing fences, with closing spaces. And for us, it was really important that architecture express freedom. And that's something that, at least in our country, we believe it's really powerful and important. We are also really inspired by landscapes, and we got the best landscapes we can imagine. And we have also these ruins and this history of boats and relationships in San Blas. So we tried a lot, again, with this idea of the geometry, and of course with this inspiration of how to create a landscape that is intelligent. You know, we are filled with golf courses. And it's almost ridiculous that landscapes look like golf courses. You place grass, and people always say, you hate grass. Oh no, I love grass in England. But in these lands, we have magueyes, we have nopales, we have amazing plants that can be local without any maintenance. So we were really inspired by that landscape, and we wanted to create a very nice feature, a playground inspired by ships, inspired by waves, and to attach a program which was really diverse, in this case a dock to take a ferry to take you to some islands that are going to be a touristic spot. So we also, as Jan mentioned, we understand the site. we want to use the local materials. And even though we propose, this landscape was built in 4 months, so and we're a lot of square meters. So in this case, we use brick, artisanal brick, but also technical brick, and also the stones that were found there. We love this idea of believing that we can harvest water in a natural way, that we can do a landscape that changes depending on if it rains or not. And we want to take advantage of every shadow that we got freely, which are the trees that were already there. And we want to be playful at the same time. We need to take advantage, and if we are building something, this something should make things happen. It can work for being in a bike, but also for having a basketball game. And to take advantage of that diversity is something you need to do when you don't have things. In Bacalar, we have another condition. We have the oldest alive features called estromatolitos. I don't know if you know them, but they are very, very old living creatures. And we are destroying our landscape. And when you work in these sites, you don't want to do anything, you know? You just want to close your eyes and say, we don't need to do something. We need to unbuild sometimes. And we were really scared, but I think it's very important that we relate each other with experts. And in this case, a biologist showed us the potential of building in these 3 projects in gardens that could treat the water to arrive to this amazing lagoon of the 7 colors. So our designs had to do with the logic of how these gardens could become filters to treat water and to throw it, let's say, to the lagoon already clean, because there's no drainage in these towns. And always play with local materials again. In this case, we were asked to build a community center. And, you know, in this area, creating democracy through a dock is significant, and architecture can do that. So we decided to build this dock, which is 3 meters wide, enough to be a building and to move around a wetland. We decided to create a landscape strategy with these rain gardens and these hollows that could clean a bit the idea of the mangrove, which is something that is disappearing in Bacalar. A strategy of a dock that could go up and down around the mangrove or in the same level of the lagoon, but at the same time, it can become a space to hide and create a shadow for the people, and also a scenography to talk about the memory of this lagoon. And this is important. This simple dock could do many things at the same time, but also something significant, which is how to connect to the stars. And that's something very simple that pre-Hispanic architecture does. And that is the tension between the earth and our interventions. And here you see the shadow of this piece, how it floats over this mangrove and how it moves around in this square of 200 per 200, which is a path, a road, an experience, and also an observation spot of the mangrove, of the stars, and of the lagoon. And to close this, I'll talk about the Jaguar Park. And this park is a spot that is 1,000 acres area protected, naturally protected area. And it is very important, it was very important for us to create 3 different strategies. These strategies was to consider everyone there. When they ask you to do a park, you usually say, what should I build? I want to build the less as possible. But we decided to create 3 strategies. To start that, first, we recognize the site. And this site, you know, this is a place where the meteorito that killed all the dinosaurs happened. So this has memory, the geology, the vegetation, the relationship between the water, the subsoil, the stars is very powerful. The Mayas live here in this land. So the Mayas are still alive. We are part of the Mayans. And this, how to relate to this magnificent territory. We didn't want to do anything at all. So we decided three elements for this park. The first was to limit it and to understand and make people understand that we could create a wall that symbolized something. So as Mayas had done, we just placed stones one over the other without pasting them. And it is the usual way, they call it a te corral or an albarradón. And it's a traditional way and a very sustainable one, because the stones they take out from the soil where they are, they just place it in a particular way, and then they move land to create a landscape. The second strategy was to enlarge the park, and the third one was to organize it. So for us, it was really important to take away the cars and to let the pedestrians, the bicycles, and the people to move around. Also, the idea organizing this is to create enough flexible spaces for people to move around. You know, Tulum is the third more visited archaeological site that we have, but it is really small. So the park will open up possibilities for the visitors, almost 15,000 visitors per day, imagine that. And this was also the opportunity to think about the culture and how to talk about that. So we decided to build a structure and a strategy of some elements like lines. In Maya, there's a beautiful word called Sacbe, which is white path. And pre-Hispanic Mayans, they used these paths to move around the jungle. And these paths used to be from 80 centimeters to 2 meters. And we created these lines that are based in the jungle, and that they take the risk to disappear. That was something really important for us, to disappear among this jungle, to create these vegetal ceilings and these white paths, so you can place people in a specific spot. We believe that maybe the best architecture, when you have a magnificent landscape, should disappear, but should have a voice, and should let the people to place themselves in a place where they hadn't been before. So we designed these paths to let the people be in places they couldn't be in a former condition. These buildings are almost nothing. They wrap a program. They are made with Chico Zapote and local stone. And we just wanted to create paths good enough that are buildings that are intelligent, they're very skinny, so they disappear, they let the wind pass, they let the light pass, and they let the jungle happen at the same time. We recycle, of course, everything that we had. We clean, we had this faro, so we recycle and took advantage of it. And we just create a platform to place people to see and to frame the view to these magnificent scenarios. Again, the strategy of the light, of letting the wind, those issues are really significant, of framing what you already have, of letting the sun happen in a correct way, and to let, at the end, the vegetation and the jungle happen as significant as it is. We also we also believe that the history and the memory of structures is already there. The Mayans were so brilliant, and we just need to be humble and to hear the voices of these people. Then there were no people, no animals, no trees, no stones, no nothing. Everything was a desolated wasteland without limits. Above the plains, space lay motionless, while on top of the chaos rested the immensity of the sea. Nothing was together or occupied. What was below had no resemblance to what was above. Nothing could be seen standing. Only the sordid tranquility of waters was felt, which seems to fall into the abyss. In the silence of darkness lived the gods, who are called Tepeu, Gucumax, and Huracan, whose names keeps the secret of creation, of existence and death, of the earth and the beings that inhabit it. When the gods arrived at the place where darkness was deposited, they spoke among themselves, expressed their feelings, and agreed on what they should do. They thought about how they would make the light emerge, which would feed eternity. The light was then made in the bosom of the uncreated. They thus contemplate the original nature of life that is in the heart of the unknown. The proportions gods then say the existence of the beings that were going to be born. And given this certainty, they said, it is good that the earth is empty and the waters are removed from the low places, so that they can be worked. In them the sowing will be fertilized by air dew and underground humidity. The trees will grow, be covered with flowers and bear fruits, and spread the same nature as their food. They will never have another. They will die the day they have it different. Thus the existence of the fields where the new beings would live was solved. Then the clouds that fill the space between heaven and earth move away. Below them and above the surface water, the hills and mountains that are seen today began to appear. In the valleys, massives of cypresses, oaks, cedars, and poplars were formed. A sour and sweet aroma was released from this forest of very rich sap. Then the path was opened that divided the dry space from the wet space. Seeing what had been done, the gods said, the first creation has been completed and is beautiful before our eyes. The Popol Vuh is a recompilation of myth and legendary stories of the Mayan people, still inhabiting this land. It's called a sacred book for the Mayans. It wraps great wisdom and local traditions to talk about astrology, myth, customs, history, and legends that talk about the origin of the world and civilization, as well as nature phenomena. Thank you.
Stay there with the microphone. Thank you so much, Gabriela. That was really moving, the poem you read. I was really, really touched. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
These projects that you've been showing us here, could you just tell us a little bit about the financing and the structure of the commissions, who commissioned them, who's organizing these projects, and are you the only architectural collective that is working out in Mexico with public spaces now?
No. As I mentioned before, this is a program that was designed from the federal government.
From the federal government?
Yes, and they were done almost 1,000 projects, more than 1,000 projects.
That's a huge project to roll out from the federal government.
I know.
What gave them that idea? It's a good idea, but
it's something that used to happen before, but in a different way. You know, like the municipal authorities, they usually ask or request, oh, we need a market, let's say. So they request the money to the federal government. What happens is the federal government gave the money, and they usually did a market, for example. Mm-hmm. They built something with that money. Now, this federal government had decided that instead of giving the money and letting the local authorities do whatever, they hear the request and they build the project. They design and they build the project.
So the federal government is now the commissioner.
Exactly. So the guy that is leading this secretary is an architect. So he believes in the power of design somehow. So he had suggested that usually these things were designed by the constructors itself that doesn't care a shit about design. So what happened now is that they had invited more than 400 firms of designers to design these buildings. So it's a huge program and a huge investment in in sites that you can imagine, like sites of 500 people away in the mountains without any infrastructure at all. So it's been interesting, and for the last 5 years, this is that is happening in our country.
So is this program continuing now, or
We
was
don't
this
know.
like a
We have a
5-year
new
plan?
president. We had elections, you see.
Oh, yes,
We
you-
had elections last Sunday. And even though it's the same party, I mean, we're not sure if the program is going to continue. At least we think it should, but we don't know.
So it's good that you have kept such a high speed on this project. Like, what was it, 36 projects in 36
projects
months?
in 36
Yeah,
months.
you use
It's
that
almost
window.
ridiculous, but that's the reason that we say that this is one whole project. You know, it's like for us, the Colectivo is like a strategy somehow. Every project was an opportunity to arrange our mistakes that happened before. And that's why it's also very important to be a colectivo, because we were several minds taking decisions at the same time. Two of my partners are here as well, and I think at the end we were almost like 100 architects developing on all this work in that time.
We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about the work of a collective when we have the panel discussion in just a moment. Is there any more questions from any questions from the audience to Gabriela at this point, or can you save it for the panel?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's save it for the panel. Thank you. I will now invite Mr. Bunsarm Pratanda to the stage. He has to plug in his own laptop. So I will introduce you while you do the unplugging and in-plugging. Leo will be assisting. Bunsarm is considered one of the most important architects in his homeland, Thailand. You have won a long list of prestigious international awards. The grand prize at the Brick Award 2014, for example. Yeah, a big hurrah for that. Woo! But you were also shortlisted for the Aga Khan Awards for Architecture in 2013. And you won the Global Award for Sustainable Architecture in 2018, to just name a few of your accolades. You are also, he is also, well, he's been a sought-after lecturer. You have spoken at the Royal Institute of British Architects, at Cité de l'Architecture et du Patrimoine in Paris, and at some of the most prestigious universities around the world. Your work is also frequently exhibited in Europe, for example. This year alone, you have so far participated in the Milano Triennale and in the Triennale in Bruges. You have a hearing impairment, yes. So you will have your lecture subtitled a little bit. Yep. There will be words, yeah. And the title of your presentation is Making Sense, yep. Non-Human-Centered Architecture. Welcome, and thank you for being here, Bunsarm.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Veronica. Thank you so much for the Brick Award and for having me in this event. It's very honor. For me, we think about it. And when I work with the project, and I think about it, what is thank you. What is the project is and makes sense or not. So I don't have the theory. I don't have any philosophy. So I started to make it like it. Using is my common sense. This is why it making sense is related. It's about my life and my work. And a non-human center is one of my statements that I work with, and some is not a human, but it's an animal. And I always ask myself, It's about then who am I, and I have no answer. I cannot find it because I have the hearing problem. With the one side of my ear, I cannot hear anything, and another side I can hear it only the 30% is the low tone. So it's this is my first work. My first work is come from when I was 45 years old. This is my first building. That is, I worked it a long time. That is, I have to, talking about it, I never forget it, this project, and I started from here. This is the film school, and the film school that we want to build up the young generation to be a film director or a filmmaker. I start with the question is how we can use the architecture, can teach humanity for the student. And just we making the place. The place is like using the fundamental sense. It's like the smell, hearing, temperature, and taste, or the spirituality. This is the idea, it comes from me, because I lost the one sense. I lost one sense, but it's not the problem. But it lost one sense, it opened the other sense to perceive the architecture. It's like making the undulating wall. When the sunlight touch on the wall, the undulating wall makes it a shadow and the light there. It makes it the wall is cooler when the wall is under the shadow. And how to make it that the wall is become to perceive and the temperature. In the rainy season, the brick wall, it change the color, it from the orange, it become to the green. So, making the place it for not only the school, teach the student to meditation, not about the religious, but it's about by common behavior. Just it's like you walking in the pathway. It's very silent. You can hear only the sound of the silence. And making the courtyard and connected between the classroom and the outside. And yes, I not design architecture. I decide to win the light, the shadow, and the dimness. And I want to ask the student, before you study a film, you have to learn how to be a human first. When you have a feeling, you have the emotion, you have learned about how cold, how hot it, how you started. This is the feeling of the emotion that is the film school and it taught to you. I make it like being it the brick and some of the steel structure to combine together and try to bring and forgotten the community who make it a big factory. So at that time, it's a big factory, and they have no job yet. I want to bring it a job back to them and make it like an opportunity to the community, making the breed and acting the breed for this community. This is one of my intent. Make it the place, it's like it's a brick. It's like it, and the people can understand it's about the brick is used it like the human power, the diligent knowledge, and the transfer is among the generation to understand. And after finish the project, that I have learned that the silence it can tell everything in this place. And then we make it, and the project is for the restaurant. But the restaurant, it make it the restaurant for the women restaurant. It's like it, and restaurant is managed by it the lady. And we asked it about it how the architecture is connected with the life and the local story. and how can we use the local food can change the city. This is and my question that we started. We in this the village that we have to the many things to forgotten, like it and the triangle shape that it architects don't like to use it, and like it and the old lady that is a forgotten human in this village, and the local food. So it and this is and the village is very small. It, the village is situated in and the World Heritage. This is a tourist city. But this village is and no one to interesting because it is and like the middle of nowhere. So I make it like it and the small. The restaurant is managed by the old lady. Some is single, some is widow. So it's and every morning it's under the old lady come to the temple and they make it the food and to share to and monk and to share for and the neighborhood. And it's become to and the idea is how to use the local food that is allowed to find to eat in right now in the local community. It become to like it and interesting food. So it's and the old lady is not a chef. They are it looks like it's and mother cooker. So it's and when you come here, it feels like you make it the food for they saw you. It's not a visitor. They saw you. It like it and you are it and our boy, our girl, with all our children to make a cook for when you come back home. And yes, I want to honor them by set up the name on the building. They are common people, but set up the name is the name of the building, and people walk it find. You have to find. You have to find for a hidden place, hidden food, hidden everything. It's like you lost in the way in a small village. And we put it like it and the glass box and the wood. And the glass box is very industrial. And the wood is very natural. So I combine it between it talking about, and not about the brick, but we're talking about the mortar, how to make it like it and dry mortar to connect it with and like the forgotten material. Because in Thailand, we use the glass box for the toilet. So this is and the meaning that I want to send the message to the people. And the glass box is amazing for being it the light. It from the outside to the inside. And this is and placed in and inside for the restaurant. It's very simple between the natural material like the wood and the glass box. And the bar, it is a local bar. And I make it like the last window. Make the last window, but it's very lighted because I use a PVC. It's for the food grade. It's PVC. It's that used in the coal factory. It's to apply to for make it like the last window. The glass box is very hot, so we make it like it the ventilation last window and use it like the common fitting. It's like I bring it and the hinge. It's from the truck. So it's the truck. It's very heavy duty. So I apply to make it like the last window. In the daytime, the light it come from the outside to inside. But in the nighttime, in the building, it becomes to the lantern of the community. Not only the old lady, but it's for often, even like you are a lady boy. This is open for you, make it a performance for it and this village also. In a flood season, every year, the grandma cannot live in the house because the flood is up level to the house. So they live on the road. And after this project is finished, it becomes to a temporary home. It's for the lady. It come here and talk and laugh and living yeah, life is so difficult. And the government it give and only in 13 euro a month. It for like the allowance for the old lady. It equal like and 3.5 hamburger. After the project is finished, it like an old lady. They don't know about how to write the letter, but they want to and say it's like something. It's about and the thank you. It's for and the visitor to come and give the opportunity to her. And then it and we work with and human a lot. So it and I want to make something like different. This is very different. It from and change is my knowledge. It and try to understand it's about and different species. It the Elephant World Project is and we work with and the question is about what role of the architecture it play in the protecting of the elephant and the Kui people in this village. My question is about how the human nature and other living species can live together. And most architecture is created to the human. That's my statement. I want to make something is the non-human center. I want to amplify to the word in the humanity. It's showing the empathy. The project is situated in the middle of nowhere because it's northeastern of Thailand. It's very far, very poor, very hot. This place is the hottest, one of the hottest in Thailand. It's more than 55 degrees Celsius. So it's and this area is and it's a place where the Kui people and the elephant it can live together 400 years ago. This is and how that is and human live in the house, but the elephant can live in the house only the one roof also. We look at the elephant. It's not our slave or forced labor, but they are our family. This is our belief in this village. The village is comprised of the graveyard, the elephant temple, and the elephant pool, and the pathway, and the house. Over the time, we have the problem when the economic growth, the human it need the land, so they destroy the national reserve forest. The elephant have no food. They have to wander to go to a tourist city to beg the money. During the way, and the elephant it have the accident, die, sick. So the project is set up by the local government to make it a new home for the elephant, and then they want to make it and something like and recovery in the forest also. And I don't know about the animal that I saw. I start with my drawing to make it like the elephant Vinci, because the human have and human Vinci. So this is an elephant Vinci to make me to understand it's about what is the center. And we study about the anatomy. We study about the scale of the elephant, and we learn about the characteristics. And we learn about the movement of the elephant, and elephant step, and elephant vision, and elephant smell ability. This is an amazing animal. It's the biggest animal on the earth. So that's why then we call that the elephant is like the umbrella species of the whole animal. So when the animal dies, we bring the animal to the graveyard. In this village, we make the graveyard for the elephant. We respect this animal. So we don't eat the elephant for sure. So the project we set up like the 3 facilities: the observation tower, and cultural courtyard, and the elephant museum. And we start with the tower. It's for the observation tower. Making the tower is like the vertical, but the vertical is connected with the sky, like it's the land, it's the cloud, it's connected with and the above, the air. Yes, and make with the tower, if the people like to walk up to and the top and they see the view, but it's on this tower, I want people to slow down, calm down, and you make it like an enjoy in the every level of the inside of this building. So it's an the atmosphere, it's inside. It comes from like the structure, the architecture, and the material also. Because of very hot in this land, everything is ventilation. The enclosure is ventilation, the floor is ventilation, and the staircase is ventilation. So it's we try to make it the place for the people and the visitor and the village people to feeling like and this is the one of the place in this area. Making and the tower is not only to see, but I want it and the people to climb up to the top. That it's very good wind. So we bring the uphill, it is it, and then we use and the wind blow. And in the future, I hope that we cannot see the tower, but we see only the tree to cover it, the tower. This is I hope that. So it's an the tower, it's not the architecture. It's a part of the land, of the life of this village. Make it cultural courtyard, it's for talking about the recreation space, it's for the elephant. It's related about the culture and religion also. I study it with the how to make it the house in the living. In the Kui people, the house is very, very simple. It's very common because they don't use the architecture. And that area we have no architecture. So they make it like an ascent. How to survive with making the house with and the common sense. So this is the animal house. And the column and the footing really is fascinated to me. And the human and the elephant, it lived inside. I saw the roof, and making the something it like an outdoor place, and making the roof to cover, and cut in the middle, make it a hole, and make it small hole on the roof with for the ventilation and the light. And bring it the light from the outside to inside. Look up the sky. And human is sit on the theater. The roof, and the elephant it can walk it like a freedom. And make it and something like the boundary. It's like it's a red line to protect between the elephant and the human. It's for safety. The roof is cover the land. This is very different. But this is our life of and the village people to live like that. And make the scale, it form like a big stone. And human is feel like this is a very big scale with for him. But the elephant is also make it like a thickness roof. It for like it for make it and the plate it for the cooler. We have no air condition for the elephant. So we use it like natural ventilation for the elephant. It can walk in. And make it the same for the human scale and the elephant scale. And use it like it and something that it and the elephant it like to do that. It's like when the elephant is itchy, they use it the bath to scratching it the column. So I make it like it, and the texture of the column for the elephant is crouching. Yeah, this is, and the elephant needs the water. And I dig the soil to burn the theater. And then the elephant happy to have the water. And human have the very happy to have and the theater and the architecture. So, and this place it and become to a place for the elephant happy to take a bath in. And another building, we make it like a museum. The museum that I want to make something like the museum is not the closed museum. It's not the multimedia museum, but I want to like the open air museum, but elephant it can walk to inside. I want to the surprising and between and the human and elephant, we live it like an it's parallel world. This is and make it a pathway. The idea is come from the Kui house we have no door, so it's and the museum we have no door also. And the open air museum invite the elephant to walking, and the human it walk in this way also. Something it makes it surprising. It's for and this space. And I think the human to inside the room is like than human live in the cage, but the elephant is the outside to look at the human. This is and the life of the museum. It's like and something that I want the people to listen from their mouth. It's like and this uncle. His son it was killed by his elephant. But if I asked him that what happened, how do you feel about when your elephant killed your son? He looked at me from head to toe, and he asked me about, do you want me to call the police, to cut my elephant, to go to the jail? No. He said that he cannot do it, because the elephant is my son also. So this is and the story from the true story. It's not the fake. It's not from the come from the multimedia. This and I work with life and the experience for the unexpected moment. Make it like and the new skyline from and the deep village. It's like the roofscape in this village also. I make like the brick. It's the brick, and I start with an repetition and produce it like an memory. And then it becomes to remembrance. Yes, I think about and I design only 50%, and the rest is fulfilled by the nature. It's my local spirituality of the unskilled labor are rawness, imperfection, mistake, and surprising. My architecture is perform the three functions: preserve the culture, revive the forest, and the self-sustain community. With the project, it transformed the forgotten village from the first day of the construction until the project was the final launch. During the COVID-19 pandemic, elephant is in the tourist city. It want to come back home. We make it a place. This place it become to and the home of the elephant. We put down the sticker and we and hold and selfie sticker to show the broadcast to the elephant life to the world. Respect to each other is very important. I have learned that sometimes the animal it can transform the city, bring hope and pride to the human. Humanity is not just about an human relationship. We address our humanity through our relationship with other living creature on the planet. The respect and the contempt we show toward the animal reflect the value of us as a human race. Then we was invited to make an exhibition in in the first time in Europe. And this project, we make the installation in the west side, in the situation in front of and the west side. I propose the idea is about an elephant because I want to continue with about and my knowledge and challenge me more and more. Elephant like to eat it, and they produce the poop. So I interesting the poop and bring the poop because the poop is everywhere. The dung is everywhere. It's like in the road, in the house. So I have to go back. Rethink, Winsome, you have to rethink again. So it become to making the mold and making the elephant dung pig. The elephant dung pig, we make it like it and being the elephant dung, it make with and to make it like the construction material. And then this is an elephant dung material that we started. The elephant dung is situated in front of and the Louis XIV courtyard. So this is this is very luxury place in the world, but I make it like that something I feel like it is, and my material is luxury also. So we make in Thailand, and we comply and we bring to the west side. And sent the master and collaborated with a school of the landscape in Versailles. This is a very good school and make it the glass for the elephant can eat it. This is and the theater and the people can learn. It's about how the dung, how the elephant, how the animal, how the plant can live together. We show about how it's our culture to protect the environment. We believe that if we use this light and multicolor fabric to cover the tree, we cannot cut it. How you use and the culture to protect the environment. This is our basic of and thinking in our country. And use and this one, it's light and the curtain. And yes, this is and the press day and opening day. The brick is not only the construction material and make up to our good health. So it's yes, the elephant theater in the west side like and stepping in the global south. And I bring the local material, the know-how and the culture from the Thailand to share for the people in France, especially for the young generation also. And then we got invited from the Royal Academy of Art for the summer exhibition. It makes something. So I make it like an elephant dung also, but it's different. It's different because this way it's produced in UK. We bring the dung from the elephant dung in the Colchester Zoo. So we can like everything is produced in UK. So even like the young generation is produced, they learn to produce how to use and make the elephant dung. And we make it the mold and send the mold and use it like the elephant dung in different recipe and make the installation to inside and the dung in and the very luxury gallery in this is one of the challenge me is about how to use it the technique it become to the artist. So it's I bring it like the final touch from the artist way, it become to like an art piece. And then we make it like okay. Okay, and then we want to continue to the elephant dung again. So it's I think about when we build the architecture, we can build by non-human. It's not only the human can build. So we make it like the small. I call like the small architecture. It's a mini architecture because I don't know. I have no idea. I have the knowledge about how to making the furniture. so I use it like a technique from the architect to make it like some of the seating. Elephant is then very weakness about the food. So I think about how to bring the elephant into Milano. And I want to make it like a footprint. This is the spirituality of an elephant. The elephant dung pig is the making for the elephant dung. And put the color, it's like the natural color, it's from the plant in this area. And then if we make it like the footprint, the color in the Milano, and talking about, when we want to talking about the sustainability, so it's a furniture, it's like it can be sustainability also. Even like the small piece, it's like the small architecture. We can send the message to the people in like it very more than 100% design in the city. And yes, it becomes to the elephant footprint. It's very heavy. And people ask me about why your furniture is very heavy, because I said that this is not a furniture, it's a small architecture. Elephant is heavy. Elephant is very heavy, you know. My seating is very heavy also. So and people think about my seating is like very innovative. But I said that I don't think about that. I think about the seating that I want to make something for the elephant it can eat. Buy the money for the elephant to buy the food to eat it. And I'm very happy to buy it dung. It make it for the something. Yes, the idea is in Europe that they are very, very good thinkers. You have a lot of the philosophers. But I come from like the humble country with kindness people. So it's the list of the way natural resources. And absolutely. And finally, it's the question at the first that I asked myself is reflected to my work. That, who am I? I am a human. Thank you so much.
Oops, yeah, well, be careful. Humans are also frail, yes. So be careful. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bunser. It was a revelation to hear your presentations, and I think it's always important for us as human beings to change our perspective. And I read somewhere that you grew up in very humble conditions in the Bon Khai slum area next to the Thai boxing arena in Bangkok. Yeah. And I'm very happy that your childhood dream of becoming a Thai boxer didn't happen. You were too small to become a professional Thai boxer, but you have just the right size to be an architect for elephants. Yeah? Are there any questions for Bunser for the audience? Or we're just all very taken, I think, with your presentation. It needs to sink in a little bit. Yeah, we have a question from Maria. Yeah? Leah, would you please?
Sorry, a really, really quick and really probably silly question. Does that smell, the dung bricks? Do they smell?
Do they smell?
Do they smell the dung bricks? And is it part of the experience if they do?
you have to smell by yourself.
Oh, right, okay, perfect, thank you.
Because
Use your senses.
when we want to know the architecture, when
Yeah.
we want to know everything,
So it
we
is
go
part of the
to
experience. Yeah.
see.
Perfect,
Not, don't believe it with your ear. Believe it with your eye.
brilliant, thank you.
Thank you so much, Bunsen. We're going to invite all the speakers up on stage and rearrange and organize ourselves a little bit. So if you want to take like a 5-minute break, don't go too far. Don't stray. But if you need to just stand up, do a short break for your toilet break or whatever, we'll be back in about 5 minutes. Yeah, good idea. Please take your seat, Jens. I would like Jennifer here. Van Bunserm, if you can take a seat. Gabriella. Good. Maybe we should just close the doors and get started. People have, I guess, things to do, places to go after 2 o'clock, especially our online audience, maybe. So I guess you were starving, or the people out there at least seem very hungry. But there will be leftovers for the obedient part of this, of this crowd. We will all be able to have a glass of wine after the panel discussion, but please take a seat, yeah, and get started. Maybe, would you need some water maybe here up on stage? Yeah, I can see if I can. Okay, thank you. So yeah, that microphone is yours, and this one is yours, Jennifer. And that's yours, and that's yours. Yeah, great. Everyone has a microphone. And we also have a microphone going around the room. Would you please, excuse me, would you please close the door for us? Yeah. Okay. Good. So let's get started. I think it was 2018, gosh, that's almost like 6 years ago already, that I interviewed Reinier de Graaf from OMA, the Dutch architecture office, and Bjarke Ingels from BIG. They were both in Stockholm to open for the press conference for 2 signature housing projects that they had designed, which are really nice buildings. Yeah? But I am pretty sure, this was 6 years ago, so I don't remember exactly, but I am almost positive that the words generosity, spirituality, awareness, joy, strength of the collective, the focus on community. I don't even think the word beauty actually was discussed during that press conference. So my question to you, are you representing a new way of thinking and working with architecture? Would you say? Yeah, with the microphone, please.
Oh, a difficult question, but I hope the whole society in some way is coming all together into a new approach, which I think all the presentations are touching upon here. So I hope you are right that we're seeing a beginning of something different, something more humble in some way, something more related to nature, I hope. So, yes.
Yes. This is the future of the role of the architect? What do you say, Jennifer? I mean, not that there is anything wrong with star architects, but have we seen the last of them now? Is that the end of an era?
You know, I think it's really...
Hold a little closer.
Hold it closer. I think that there are lots of different ways to work in the world, and that there are lots of different ways to practice architecture. But I think what we've lost, perhaps, in our emphasis on looking at buildings as objects is thinking about them as experiences. So I was just talking to Gabriella after the talks, and that the problem with looking at images of buildings is that they're very static. But actually, the point of buildings is that they should almost disappear into this idea of experience, and about being very present in the place. And maybe this connects to the idea of beauty. It's that experience of the moment in architecture. So I don't really care who designs it, you know, whether they're famous or not. It's kind of immaterial. It's about what is the experience of being in that place, and how is it meaningful to people, and how does it create layers within the city or the structure or the landscape?
Because I thought it was a very interesting point that you made in your presentation when you said, well, my building, my housing project, you imagine it standing maybe for 100 years from now, and just in the design thinking about that, someone else one day will come and refurbish it, transform it.
Yeah.
Is that hard to imagine as an architect? Is that kind of letting go of your creativity and your design, so to speak?
But I always think that as architects, we do give our buildings away, actually. Kind of fundamentally, that's what we do. We create these things, we put a lot of effort and energy into making them, but we always give them away. So maybe we just need to think about that process of kind of gifting buildings or spaces in the way we design. But it's the reality of what we do as architects. We just maybe need to acknowledge it.
Yeah, you just need to accept it and acknowledge
Yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah. Bunsar, you are now lecturing, speaking both at university, so to young aspiring architects, but also to professional architects all over Europe. What is your expression of what are they learning? What are they taking with them from hearing your presentation?
I think it's like maybe they can learn. It's like and the people in Europe they can learn about unlearning. Because the first question that we have the conversation, you asked me a lot that, and I said that I don't know.
No.
I said I don't know because I don't know. I don't know it because so when I don't know it, I want to learn. When I learned it, and when I learn and I do, and when I do, I don't know again, and I go back to relearning. I want it and the people in Europe to try to learn about the unlearning and relearning again. And
to learn, to relearn, to learn again, to listen. Yeah. That also connects, I think, to history. And I was so moved when you read is it a poem or is it more like a story from... it's a book.
It's the beginning of a book.
It's the beginning of a book, yeah.
Called Popol Vuh.
Because now we're really we talked yesterday about time and the meaning of time and our relationship to time. I mean, working as a landscape architect, for example, you always have to consider time because things keep really, literally growing and changing. But I was thinking about you referring to the what do you call it again, when the stones fall from the sky? The
meteorito?
Yeah, the meteorite that hit the earth and all the dinosaurs died. We have and then you talk about the Mayas.
Yes.
And you all have a relationship to history, and I think also that you approach history with an interest and a respect for the people and humans and animals that has walked this earth before us. And this is something that I actually haven't encountered that much studying architecture in the 20th century, right? Was modernism a project moving away from that as far as possible, as you're concerned?
Well, I don't know here. I mean, at least in Mexico, for us architects, is to visit and to be around pre-Hispanic architecture is really important. It's something that we do. Usually we have special classes about pre-Hispanic architecture. So we are really inspired, I believe. And as Jen was saying, we are trained to move around as architects, and that's a problem, I believe. But I believe that in Mexico we have the advantage of having this land, which is at the end architecture, but it's landscape at the same time. And it's memory, and it has patinas, and it is constructed by topography. So I think we had an advantage with it, you know, like in our culture we have it. And we have that opportunity to understand voidness, for example, that we build things with almost nothing, and that void is powerful and significant for composition. So I think on that sense, we have that memory behind, which is really powerful. And we had a very powerful culture as well, you know, like alive. Our food is fantastic. The colonial architecture as well is really powerful. And that culture surrounds us. So I mean, it's impossible not to recognize that. And also that diversity of environments had gave us a diversity of cultures as well. So I think we just need to be more observers and take advantage of that on that sense. And that's maybe what we do in our work somehow. But I think we're very lucky because of the place where we are and because of being Mexicans.
You're the proudest Mexican.
We are lucky.
Yes. Well, you are all working to kind of push boundaries and find new and innovative ways of working. But I would like to ask you, being at the forefront, so to speak, of your practices, what are the challenges that you are battling in your practices right now? Jennifer, what is the biggest challenge that you're facing in your practice right now?
In the UK, it's resistance to change.
Resistance to change, conservatism, would you say?
Yeah, I think people are just used to doing things in a certain way. I mean, I'm particularly thinking about housing delivery. Of course, there are projects that people are doing, which are changing, you know, and very innovative projects, but they're still in the minority. And I think the majority of housing in the UK is delivered in the same way it was a very long time ago, just because there's such an imperative to deliver housing. So a lot of issues are just kind of pushed to one side because there's such a power in delivery just of numbers. And this is my primary concern, is we actually need the culture around procurement and delivery to change. And that's one of the reasons the UK government, I think, got involved in this debate, because they could see that they really need to push the delivery not only of kind of the signature housing projects, but also housing on a much larger scale, and reconsider how it's done, how it's delivered.
Could you explain the word procurement for those of you who are not?
It's basically like, who builds it? Who builds it, and what are they comfortable with? And people are used to building buildings in a very particular way in the UK, and in actually quite a traditional way. And it's not really delivering the carbon performance that we need in order to get to carbon zero. But people like to use the products that they are already using. So even if we specify low carbon materials, there's often a lot of pushback from contractors about using those materials, because they say, oh no, it's more expensive, even when we know it's not more expensive. So I think it is really about bringing the entire process along with you, not thinking that you can impose things on people, because they're very resistant to change. So I think we probably need to start the conversations with the people who are actually delivering the buildings much earlier on in the process, so that they're not afraid of doing things a little differently, and they get taken along with us.
And how can you as an architect do that? I mean, how can you in your practice try to change that?
Well, I think there is the model in the way buildings are bought in the UK, which is essentially what procurement is a competitive tender process. That's essentially what we used to in the first world. And what that does is it brings contractors in on the process very far down the line when the building is already designed. So I think we really need to advocate with clients to look at the whole partnership of buildings. It's not just partnerships of designers and collaborators, but also with the people building the buildings. And more enlightened clients are absolutely seeing that, and they are involving contractors in the process of the building very early on. So they're essentially seeing value differently, that things don't have to be competitively tendered, that people can be brought into that process very early on. So I think that's what we're doing. We're talking to our clients about doing that, so that we can really deliver holistic solutions.
So it's a systemic change that has to happen for adequate housing of high quality that can stand the test of time, that's in harmony with carbon emissions levels, to be scaled up.
Yes.
And what you're doing now is that you're showing that, well, there are other ways to build, plan, and execute housing. So what you're doing now is showing on a smaller scale the possibilities and then challenging the system to change. Is that
well,
we
know we can do it. We know we can deliver housing that is very close to carbon zero, and we know we can deliver flexible homes that allow people to live full lives in those homes. We know we can do it, and they know it's entirely possible. The problem is how are they built? Who builds them, and are those people on board?
Yeah. Jens, you were talking about challenging. You come into a project, and your commission is to tear a building down, and then when you finish the project, the buildings are still there. But how are you challenging the system? I mean, in Denmark, it's a bit different from the UK, but what are the biggest challenges that you are facing in your practice? The microphone.
I think, as you all know, it's a lot of challenges, but I think one of the things in terms of going into kind of an untested land, which is this, because there's no, it's not catalog product, it's things that you haven't tested before, and that therefore there's always a question, who's responsible for the solution, and how do you convince client or engineers or constructors that we're going to test to do this, even though it's not been done 10 times before. I think there is a whole path there where we're so used to that everything we build with is proven and proven and proven, and that makes it difficult to be on a kind of innovative path, of course.
Yeah.
Because we're a small office, and we, of course, like to take our responsibility, but there's also a limit to our economical capacity.
Yes, of course.
So to speak. Yeah.
Gabriela, what is your biggest challenge?
Well, I think it's pretty similar. We pretend to break paradigmas. I think we need to change who we had been, because somehow the world is being destroyed because of that. So I think we are, at least on our side, it's really important to be aligned in the same path with the client. That is really significant. That you can challenge stuff, like starting from the program. Do we really need a building? Do we really need to build things at some point? And it's similar to what you do. Do I really need to take this off, or can I work with it? And I think those challenges happen in many different scales. It happens for us, like doing public spaces. You never know how the buildings are, or the spaces are going to end, and how people wrap them or not. And it's always, and we want, and I believe we need to take that risk. And always, I believe that maybe codes and this idea of protection and this idea of understanding modernity in the way we had is very dangerous, because at least in my country, everyone believes they should build in concrete block, and with concrete, because it's an upgrade. You know, like building with palm or with stone, it's like,
Old-fashioned and,
we are more powerful, we are more rich, we are more important because we have a concrete house. And that's, I think that's a big issue because of that, they don't, I mean, people in general, they don't want earth houses as they used to have, or palm houses. We want to last forever. And I think that's a big question we should ask ourselves. And I think that's something especially best temperature you can imagine, that is built with local hands, with local materials. And maybe you need to do it in 7 years again. But it will cost like 0.0%, you know. I think that is what we are facing, and that it's a big risk because we need to change completely our minds.
Yes.
So I think that's the challenge that we want to face, and that through our work and through my work, I think I want to fight.
That's good. Let's fight. That brings us back, I think, to Bunserm's presentation with the people living together and with the elephants who have managed to live in a kind of like a symbiosis in their house together with the elephants, learning to respect and us humans being a part of nature and seeing us as a part of nature. So what do you think we could learn in Europe from, you said it actually in your presentation very well, but this is also a way to putting ourselves not at the top of the evolution, but as a part of evolution, right? And how is that going to be reflected, you think, in architecture?
The first question that I would like to ask to answer the question, it's my challenge. It's right now that I try to challenge with myself, because it's as a designer or the architect that we want to try to create more and more. And it's to me, and I want to reduce.
You want to redo it?
Reduce it. Everything
reduce, yeah.
Now, it's too much to decide. So that when I talk with a young architect, when I saw the work, I said, he wanted to comment from me. Then I said that, do you know the eraser? Do you know it and delete bottom? You should use the delete bottom. You should write the eraser. That is, and it to me, and I want to try on this one. So that's what I'm talking about, and 50% decided. So then I have to go back to everything to calm down and the basic. The world is going to very advanced, moving forward, very fast.
Moving forward fast all the time, accelerating.
I come from right and very poor family. So then I was taught about and how do you understand about the necessity or necessity.
Of necessities, yes.
When you use it. So it is one of my challenges right now. It's not this goal too fast and go back to the basic.
Yes.
And
go back to basics.
Yeah, I think it's right, and the question is, and it's cover that you asked me about, and the people that from the Europe did learn about it, and this is an Elephant World project. And one of the example is the human, and how to prove that you said about and sustainability in the city. You're talking about clean. You're talking about tree. How do you prove that this is? Are you sure that it's in your clean city, the animal can live it?
Yeah. And that brings us back to Jens. You talked about the Refshalvön, and the 4 endangered species there. And they were on a total different scale, talking about scalability here. We went from elephants to a frog to butterflies and an eel. But I think it was really thought-provoking when you showed us the scheme, like how they were all connected into the ecosystem and the meaning of biodiversity. Because I know in Scandinavia has been, well, not many, but several projects that has been halted because of a salamander or, yeah, a small lizard. And people get really frustrated. We can't stop a housing project because of a lizard. But now you're saying, well, maybe there's a way to work to have both.
Yeah, but I think when we're ending up getting frustrated, it's also because we, it's because we starting at a different place and we're going so far before we're realizing that we are actually not the only living persons, living creatures in this area. So we can always put ourselves and our needs first. But if you first start to analyze the ecosystem and find out what the possibilities are and where we should be careful, I think we can come a long way, and you don't need the frustration because then you have already kind of set some different rules. And I think it's kind of there I want to come, is that we kind of start our mindset in an earlier stage where we put nature and surrounding and history and whatever built environment it is, in an earlier thinking, because I think we have come to a point where we just the starting point is what we need and what we want and how much money we can earn. So I think we have to turn it a little bit upside down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Well, yeah, sort of. Especially the money situation. We haven't been talking that much about finance. And well, you were touching on it when it comes to housing. We were on the tour. We all went on the tour yesterday, and we visited the social housing projects in Vienna that were built in the 1920s, after the First World War. And we're often told by our politicians and the building and constructor and real estate and financial sectors in Sweden at least that, well, we can't afford to build affordable housing for everyone. It's too expensive. It's so naive to think that that is even going to be a possibility to build sustainable, adequate, affordable housing for all. But in Vienna, that was possible after the First World War. When the Spanish flu was raging, there wasn't an economy. And that was, I guess, because people came together and had a vision about what kind of society they were going to rebuild after the devastating experiences of war, right? And I think that is, it's a reality that we all are facing now. And we then visited Seebad, and we saw the vision of our contemporary society and what we are building with the system that we are currently working in. And I think architects often gets the question, how can we solve this? How can we solve the climate crisis, the housing crisis? But here I think it's an important lesson that I want to take away from listening to you all. It's also the focus on the collective on a larger scale. You as architects are also working in a kind of an economic ecosystem, so to speak. And for the change to really happen, I guess we all as an industry, the constructors, the builders, the real estate, the financial sector, and the architects and landscape architects have to have a common vision of what kind of society we want to build for the future when so much is at stake. And what you have shown here today is that we are a very resourceful species, right? We stand on the shoulder of a very long history going back to the Mayas and the indigenous people that have walked this world a long time, and they have also always needed housing and build communities and public spaces. So to be innovative can also be to look back on history. That's also something that you have taught us here, I think, today. I would like to open up for the audience. If you have any questions to our panel, please feel free to use the microphone. We have a question right up here at front. the most curious of our audience members. Or maybe the most courageous one.
Or the one in need, I think.
You're the one most in need.
Yeah.
And what is your name again?
I'm Margarita. I'm from Wienerberger, and I'm an architect. And I'm based in London, and I take care of international projects myself. So I'm always interacting with different practices that have...
Can you keep the microphone lit?
I'm interacting with different practices that have projects everywhere. And as a company, we are always trying to improve our interaction with architects. And with the UK case, I think UK is very innovative as a country, architecturally wise. I think London is a laboratory of architecture. And to me, the reason of it is due to the mix of cultures that happens in this city. So what you said before, Open Studio representative, what you said before about the problem of this procurement, the problem of not being able to innovate in UK, I think is such a contradiction with the fact that innovation is in UK at the same time, right? So I just opened this question because I think the innovation leaves UK when the project leaves UK, although it is designed in UK. So I don't know if you agree, disagree. What's your opinion on this? Sorry if it is very complex.
I think so.
I think that in London there are very forward-thinking clients and there's a lot of innovation in the City of London. But London is a really tiny fragment of what gets delivered in the UK. And so when you look at projects in housing projects in London, they are delivered by architects and they're delivered to a really good standard and they delivered with really innovative construction principles. But when you look at the majority of the housing that's delivered in the UK is outside of London. So we were trying to get involved in those large numbers of housing. So this is what I'm saying. I think the signature projects in London are incredible and there are a lot of really amazing architects doing really interesting things. But that can kind of blind us to the fact that most of the housing that's delivered in the UK is not built to the standards in London at all. So, you know, it's very particular in different places, and I think we have to be really careful not to generalize. So when I talk about UK-wide housing, I should probably say with the exception of, you know, city centres. But I do think there is an issue about the delivery of housing, particularly by house builders. They do not use architects. They're quite resistant to including architects, and actually that's the majority of housing that's delivered in the UK, and it's still not delivered even to the standards that are set nationally, and it's certainly not delivered to the standards that housing is delivered to in London. Housing in London is delivered to a much higher standard, like even floor-to-ceiling heights, even daylight sunlight levels. It's just not imposed outside of London because councils feel they can't say no to numbers of housing. And that's a huge issue, and it's one that we shouldn't be blind to.
Thank you very much.
More questions? You can just pass the mic to the guy sitting behind you. There you go.
Thank you. I first want to say really thank you for this great presentations and the great discussions. It was so inspiring, I think.
Can you bring the microphone a little bit closer?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
And so my name is Maximilian Hinz, I'm from Baunetz in Berlin, and what I found really interesting and great that you all talked about imperfection as a chance to have beautiful spaces. And if I see the most architecture or space in Europe, I think there's so much which holds us back from doing these imperfections. What do you think we should need to do not too much, to not over-design all the spaces we have?
What should we do not to over-design? Jens, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, a really good question, I think. But I think it's something in all art, I think, which only happens when there is an imperfection. There is some kind of tension when there is control and there is some spontaneity. And I think a lot of projects that, at least, and also within other art forms, kind of lie in between that. And it's very hard to put that on formula, I think. And that spontaneity can happen in a lot of different ways. I think the way we work, we come with our work and our way of looking at the world, but then we use the resistance of everything around to kind of come into that imperfection room. That could be the users that are there, that could be the nature that give a resistance, that could be the client, that could be the cultural history, I think. So maybe if we let those outer factors a little bit more in, and I think that's maybe also to be a little bit more humble of what is already there, then I think that's at least a step on the way to be a little bit more imperfect. I think there's also some things that happen on the road that you didn't expect when you do that, and I think maybe that's what it is. That could be at least.
Thank you.
I have another question there. Would you? Thank you, Leo.
Thank you very much. We are talking a lot about residential spaces. I was wondering which are the sustainable horizons for the offices and the workspaces.
Offices and workspaces. Would you like to take that one?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
Yeah, I was wondering which are the sustainable horizons for offices and workspaces, because we have talked quite much about residential, so houses, and I was wondering what's in the job side of the story. Thank you.
Okay.
It's on, I think. You just need to...
Hola?
Yeah?
Hola?
Yeah?
You hear me?
Yeah?
Okay, perfect. Well, I think it again has to do with breaking these paradigmas we are used to, I believe. In terms of working spaces, I believe it's pretty much the same what happens with housing. We need to think new ways of how we connect and how we work together. So for me, for example, I believe that we had forgotten basic issues, like things that has to do with taking care of others, for example. We had forgotten that women had been buried in a way with this idea of taking care of old people, of younger people, of kids. And I think that is reflected in the spaces as well. So architecture, again, has forgotten, and our own practices, in talking about working, we had forgotten that. When we do markets, for example, there's never a space for a kindergarten or a nursery, and 80% of the people that work there are women. So what we had seen is a lot of the spaces were spaces that were used by kids, and that we should consider how to wrap in the program those issues and how we can consider spaces for kids as playgrounds. And this is just an example, you know. I understand you asked the question of sustainability, but I think sustainability has to do with understanding very basic stuff of our social way of acting between each other and the way we relate in other ways with the planet and with ourselves. So I think on that sense, we were used to think that an office should be clean, that you couldn't open a window, that you need air conditioning, and you need to be always at 90 degrees in temperature. We believe that we should have a specific space, you know, and I think we need to break that. We need to think ourselves in different positions, in a different relationship with the planet. And I think that also applies not only for the houses, but the way we work and the way we even work together. For example, I have my office. My office is semi-virtual. You know, like in the mornings, I went to a space that I can walk through. I don't want an office that seems to be an office, that has the typology of an office. And on that sense, again, the things that we are wrapped in our minds, I think, is what we need to get clean of them and start to think different. So,
thank you. We're about to wrap things up here, and I would just like to end with a quote that a Swedish feminist wrote in her last book. She said that we've worked a long time now to economize democracy, and maybe now it's time to democratize economy. And with that, I would like to thank everyone up here at the podium for 4 fantastically inspiring and hopeful presentations. A big round of applause to our keynote speakers. But I would also like to take this opportunity to express a heartfelt thank you to my namesake, Veronica Schuster-Hofinger, project manager of the Brick Award.
I'm not used to be on stage.
Without this woman, there would be no Brick Award, I assure you. Together, we have produced this symposium. Yes, and it has been such a great pleasure working with you. Thank you.
A heartfelt thank you.
Thank you so much.
To you too, and I give it back.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. And
you need this.
Thank you for you.
No, it's you. Yeah, Florian will help you.
Thank you that you're all here and that you submit or not. No, but that you care for the Brick Award. And I usually don't say anything on the stage, but I want to say thank you to you and our jury members and also our speakers, our great speakers from all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for those of you listening via the live stream. I'm sorry that we haven't been on perfect schedule for you, but I hope you will have a really good day. And from all of us here at the MAC, now the lunch will be served and you can enjoy a glass of cold white wine. And don't forget that you are also invited to see the current exhibition here at the MAC, Protest Architecture. Don't miss it. It will be open for us until 4 o'clock. Okay?
One more thing before you go outside.
Yeah?
We have someone who's got birthday today.
Oh, no.
Yes.
No.
And I think...
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. That's too sweet. You're kidding me. Oh, you're kidding me.
So, a very, very, altogether, happy birthday!
Wow. My own cake. Okay, let's have lunch. Let's have lunch. Oh, this is. Yeah, can we have a picture with all of us and the cake?